It is simple. It is to the point, but it most simply has to be said. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas out there, wherever you are watching right now, whether live with just a couple handfuls of people right now on the live stream or catching the rewatch on the Rewatch Squad. Merry Christmas. It's good to have you here on a Christmas night that is just a few minutes away from being, at least in the Eastern time zone, just another day, December 26th. But we will embrace and celebrate Christmas with all of you here at the Voice of College Football. So thank you so much for everybody who contacted me on Twitter, on Facebook, and right here on YouTube on our community page to say Merry Christmas. It is a simple thing that needs to be stated more and more out there during the holiday season. And then we need to come up with a good replacement for the rest of the year. Maybe just kind of like, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. How's it going? Absolutely, absolutely. So let's kick back, enjoy some college football. Let's talk it up. Of course, we've got bowl week. This is bowl week. We are about 15 bowl games deep into the bowl season. We've been robbed of a bowl game. The Hawaii Bowl should have been last night. And typically my approach, what I've typically done on Christmas Eve is I'm spending Christmas Eve with my family. So I DVR the Hawaii Bowl and then late at night, click that baby on and watch usually Hawaii against somebody. It is certainly coincidental how Hawaii lands in the Hawaii Bowl all the time, but it was Hawaii that messed things up this time, unfortunately. And I'm not blaming them. That's not a political statement or any such thing in regards to their carelessness or anything. But of course, Hawaii withdrew from the Hawaii Bowl. Memphis was out there ready to play some football, as I understand, on Christmas Eve, but it was not to be. As we discovered a few days ago and discussed, Rutgers taking the place of Texas A&M. Texas A&M, Rutgers, Texas A&M, Rutgers. The 5-7 Scarlet Knights in a New Year's Day bowl game. Wow, in the Gator Bowl against Wake Forest. But hey, we needed somebody to play football against Wake Forest. They wanted to play. They should play. There should be a Gator Bowl, and I am happy for it. So go to the next team, and the next team in line, Rutgers at 5-7. 5-7, and with the best grade point average in America among 5-7 teams. Good for you, Rutgers. Stump it up as a Big Ten team, taking down the ACC runner-up. But again, if you're just joining us, Merry Christmas. And many people have contacted me about helmets. And fortunately, we now have an address to give you to send your helmets. If you would like us to add to our helmet display, you can send helmets or anything else. Anything else you want to send me, except maybe a bomb. Anything other than that, I'm pretty accepting of. Any type of food item may not be the best to send in this way, but just send it to Mark Rogers. That's me. I know many of you just say Voice of College Football, but send it to Mark Rogers at 15 South Main Street, 15 South Main Street, and I'll put this up at some point on a banner, so we will more formally display this, but 15 South Main Street, number 1007, 1007, Torrington, Connecticut, 06790. All right. Our friends at Get Business Credit, they don't give up during the holiday season. They don't back down. They don't let up. Our guy, Josh Van Horn over at Get Business Credit, check him out right here on YouTube. If you've got a small business, or you want to start a small business and just think, hey, there's no way. I got no financing. My credit's not what it should be. Don't worry about your personal credit. Josh will fix you up. He's got thousands of lines of business credit. He can get you access to thousands of lines of business credit. He will take care of the financing. He will show you the way. Get Business Credit. We'll get that up on the banner as well. As you can see, we would like more sponsors here at the Voice of College Football as we head into 2022. And for those of you who have yet to journey through an off season, hey, the off season is just like in season with us. We are here talking college football every day. People ask me all the time, talk about college basketball. Once college football season's over, you probably swing and transition into college basketball, right? No. Plenty to talk about that's more interesting than talking about college basketball. College football every day. I spent the latter portion of my Christmas evening looking at 8-team, 12-team, 16-team playoffs and how that would have looked this particular season. That video is coming. The 8-team, the 16-team, the 12-team, the proposal from the playoff committee. And then also whether the recruiting rankings really matter in winning college football playoff games. So I've matched up all the teams that have played semifinal games in the college football playoffs and the championship games since 2014. And the recruiting rankings, do they matter? Does it matter who has more talent? Seems like a ridiculous question. But does it matter, and how much does it matter? We'll get to that. I'll be producing that video here soon as well. To the top. Here we go. Powcar's here. The voice. Powcar, Merry Christmas. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Uncle Rico's here. Happy Festivus. Yes, sure. John. Okay, I'm going to stay out of it between John and Uncle Rico. I think they've got something going back and forth here. M. Turner at number 4. George, here early, ready to roll. George still feeling sorry for those Georgia fans. Watching the coach torpedo the team every year. Edward's going to bed. Edward, catch us in the morning. Do that. Just set your alarm and then click play. Edward, thank you for being here. If it was for only a second or two, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. Edward, before I turn in, did you figure out your Raider quarterback from the 70s? So I was talking about, this was weeks and weeks ago, about a game that we were playing at work one time in which we found a website where it showed who quarterbacked every NFL game in history. And so it would show Cleveland Browns, 1995. Somebody quarterbacked 8 games. Somebody quarterbacked 4 games. Somebody else quarterbacked 3 games. Somebody else quarterbacked 1 game. And I made it with the Oakland Raiders all the way from now, all the way back into the late 60s. But they had somebody quarterback a game like in 1974, like 1 game. And I missed them. No. As those things happen, Edward, I typically talk about those things, then it's gone. It's out of my head. It's done. Hey, I probably did 2 more hours of the live stream after that. That was like the last thing on my mind after that. Tony's going with Florida as the worst team in Florida this year, even though Florida State, huh? Florida State. I think Florida State's losing at this point. Dave's here. Good to see Dave. Geared up for the playoff game. So bowl week. I love bowl week. So no games Sunday, and then 11 a.m. on Monday, they crank up. It's actually difficult for me to get on here and talk to all of you during bowl week because we've had bowl games up until now, but nothing that really excited me too much. The Florida UCF game got me charged up a little bit, but this week is when I really like the matchups because I know the teams. And I'll be locked in, and I will have so much to do to keep this baby rolling here at the Voice of College Football besides just watching the games. That's what I want to do, is just watch the games. But, of course, we can't do that. Jet Mech, I hope Napier purchased the entire Florida roster, most embarrassing group of players in the history of the school. Most embarrassing group of players in the history of the school. Jet Mech, we need to give you a history lesson. Like now. What did Santa bring me? I got a new doormat. I got a new mat for my kitchen. I got some new clothes. There you go. That's where we are right now. All right, let's get to our first call of the night. Here we go, right here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? Thank you, David. I am doing well. How are you?
Did you get everything you wanted from Santa this year?
Everything that I wanted. Well, since my list was 0, I guess I got everything that I wished for. Yes. How about you?
Well, okay. Well, I didn't get a lump of coal, Mark, but I think for the most part, I got everything I wanted. So.
Nice.
Well, I wanted to give you a call, Mark. I want to talk a little bit of college football with you. I got a chance to listen to a little bit of your previews. I want to get my thoughts on the one playoff game, on the Georgia-Michigan game. I heard your previews this week, the one you did with Uncle Lou, and then the people that do the Michigan podcast.
Yep.
After the game, and then heard your analysis on Mr. Dace's podcast. And your prediction, which I found to be very, very interesting. When I first thought of this game, I think these two teams do match up very well. I'm going to be try and be as objective as I possibly can about this game, and that's going to be very difficult for me to do, considering one of the two teams that's playing in this game. But that being said, I do think that they match up very well with Georgia in the trenches. I think what I must say is, from an offensive line and defensive line standpoint, I really think the team up north matches up very, very well with Georgia. I also think they're one of their strengths is that both teams have very strong backfield. I think that going into this game, I think that basically Michigan's got to be a little bit more confident in the way their quarterback is playing as compared to Stetson Bennett. Although I will say, I looked at Bennett's stats and I looked at McNamara's stats. And there's a lot of, have you pulled them up and looked at them, Mark? There's a lot of similarity there.
Well, I believe in both of the videos that you referenced. I made that statement that they are, in my eyes, similar quarterbacks, similar in regards to style to a certain extent, although McNamara is less of a runner. Bennett's more of a runner, right. But in terms of skill set, ability, and performance, and then how that relates and translates to the stats, I think they're very similar. I think the difference is that McNamara is not prone to the big mistake.
Well, I'll say this. Up until the title game, I mean, Stetson Bennett has only thrown 7 interceptions this entire year, which still isn't bad. I mean, that's a pretty decent job of taking care of the football, if I'm not mistaken, right, Mark?
It is, but they haven't played games in which they've been challenged. So I'm thinking about Alabama last year. I'm thinking about Florida last year. I'm thinking about, of course, Alabama this year. Those are the games that I'm looking at and thinking, when I've seen him against a good opponent in which Georgia's been challenged, he's made, if both of those guys throw 30 to 35 passes,
right,
I'm more confident based on their track record that they're going to play similar games, but Stetson Bennett's probably going to make 4 errors and McNamara might make 1. And not that Bennett, I'm not saying he's going to throw 4 picks, but he's going to make 4 big mistakes, and maybe 2 are picks, and 1 is a huge miss on 3rd and 7 where he just misses a guy, that sort of thing. And I just see it repeated out of him.
Well, I will say this. I mean, obviously, I think where I was going was, I think it's fair to say McNamara's, coming into the game playing better than Bennett, and that's largely based on the poor performance that Bennett had in the SEC championship game against Alabama. having watched that game, I think he threw the ball, 40 sometimes in that game, Mark? What was it, 46, 47 times?
Yeah.
Something like that, if I'm not mistaken, which was obviously not part of Georgia's game plan. They want to be able to run the football. I thought they were going to have to be able to run the football. Now, that game was also dictated by the fact that they fell behind by a couple touchdowns and they were trying to play catch up. So they got into a situation where they had to throw the football. Is it basically, bottom line for you, the team that can dictate the line of scrimmage and whichever quarterback can take care of the ball and make those one or two big throws? Is that the long and short of it, or do you see any other X factor players, or just bottom line? Because that's kind of how I see it.
My various factors across both lines of scrimmage, both units, offense and defense on both ends, would be, okay, Blake Corum, Hassan Haskins. Corum makes different plays than Haskins does. Haskins going to touch the ball more often. So is Corum going to make a couple big plays? Is Georgia going to take him completely out of the game, or is he going to make 2 or 3 big plays like he did against Iowa and like he's done all season? And he seems to be healthy. He wasn't healthy for a few weeks. The other one would be, what is Georgia going to do with Ajabo and Hutchinson? Are they going to play it the way Ohio State played it, which I thought was stupid? Or are they going to give those guys legitimate help, not just a back that throws a shoulder in there that holds them up for 1/10 of a second, like legitimate protection? So that's going to be the analysis of Kirby Smart and his offensive line coach as to, okay, I would think that they would dissect that Ohio State game more than any other game on the schedule because of the obvious talent correlation and the recency of the game, and then say they thought they could block with their 2 tackles. Can our 2 tackles block? And then the other one would be, Brock Bowers is a pretty amazing pass catching tight end, and I don't know what Michigan's going to do with him.
Well, I heard you make the analysis with Dave about, you guys both kind of talked about X factor players in the game. I actually think one of the X factor players for Georgia could be Pickens. And I thought he could have been very big in the SEC championship game. He did make one big catch that helped them set up an early score in that game. Uncle Lou is on record as saying he's the best receiver that Georgia's had since A.J. Green. Now, that's saying something. So, when healthy, he looked very good last year. Of course, he came on when J.T. Daniels was his quarterback. So, it'll be interesting to see if he could be a factor. I think, Bennett's going to have to go to the air. I think he's the type of guy that could create a chunk play in this game, a 20-yard plus play that could be huge. I see him as an X-factor player. I would agree with you on Corum. I also could see Donovan Edwards as an X-factor player for the team up north. The one thing I'll say about the Georgia offensive line blocking that team up north off defensive line is, bottom line, can Georgia establish any kind of a ground game? The thing that hurt us is I thought we could run the football a little bit better with Travion Henderson in that game. We tried to at the beginning of the second half. We couldn't get it done. We ended up falling behind in that game, and then we had to start throwing the football a little bit more, which kind of played in their hands because that allowed their pass rushers to feast a little bit. I think Georgia, if they can establish some ground game early, that's going to take, some pressure off Bennett. I think both teams are going to try to establish the ground game, although it would be interesting to see if either team comes out and tries to throw the ball on early downs. I don't know if you think either team would try and break tendency and maybe try to come out and throw the ball early in that game.
Yeah, that's anybody's guess as to whether they're going to play it. This is the way we got here. This is what we're going to do, or we're going to break tendencies. That's always a guessing game. Who knows? Kirby Smart doesn't know. Jim Harbaugh doesn't even know what the other team's going to do. They can only go by what they've seen on tape and then think and take a guess that they might or they might not.
I know you picked it. Correct me if I'm wrong. 27-24 Michigan on Dave's podcast, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
If that's going to be my final prediction, I was not prepared. I don't make predictions like 3 weeks before a football game. So
Okay.
I should have known he was going to hit me with that. I didn't think about that. So I was not expecting to have to make a prediction, but I'm not going to let him down by saying, oh, I'm not going to pick the game. So that's what came out of my mouth at the time. But I will make some kind of final prediction here, of course.
I've got a game that I think this game goes very similar to. I see this game is very similar. Do you remember the Michigan's opening game against Notre Dame to open the 2018 season?
Sure.
They kind of fell behind a little bit early in that game. They had a little bit of a comeback, got that game close into the fourth quarter. I believe Shea Patterson had a chance with the ball late in the game, and Notre Dame got a big stop. I think forced a fumble, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. That's the type of game I'm seeing here. I'm leaning towards like a 24-17, 27-20 type Georgia game. I think they can get on them early. I think the team up north can hang in there, keep it a close game into the fourth quarter, but I just don't know if they have enough offensively to win this game.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be close.
Well, they have produced more 30, 40, and 50-yard plays than Ohio State has this year.
I hear you. I'm just going to be interested to see if Georgia's front seven can limit Haskins in the running game. Can McNamara be efficient enough in the passing game? That's what's going to be interesting for me to see.
Well, I am not the biggest Cade McNamara fan in the world, nor do I think he's some kind of elite quarterback. But at this point, I've got more confidence that he's not going to make mistakes. And I also, to add to that, would say that if you take the Michigan State game, and I think people way overplay Michigan State's issues on pass defense. Was their pass defense good? No, it was not good. It was not number 130 in the country. Yes, they gave up 130th most, the 130th statistic in the nation in giving up passing yards, but that statistic doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, they were a top 35 pass defense in regards to giving up yards per play. And Cade McNamara shredded that defense. He looked good throwing the ball in that game. So if he can raise his level of play when needed to that level, and I think that's the only game that he's had to do that, and he did it. He came through when he needed to. He threw in tight windows. He was so impressive in that game. My level of respect for his game was raised exponentially after that game.
He's been solid. I mean, I actually thought he played a very good game at Wisconsin too earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's. I'm not saying he hasn't shown some capability. It will just be interesting to see though because I will just say this. I'm a little bit more confident. I think Georgia's defense is a little bit more built to stop the run than it is to stop more of an air raid based attack like they faced in Alabama. I think their front seven is a little bit more built to stop the run than it is to, let's say, stop a team that can spread them out, with, quarterback and some wide receivers that can take advantage of some of their weaknesses on the back end, as you saw in Atlanta in the championship game. So I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's a one possession or less game in the fourth quarter, and I think it could go either way. So I think we're both in agreement on that one, right, Mark?
Pretty much.
Wanted to get your opinion, Mark, on the NIL situation and kind of seeing it within the first, kind of recruiting cycle. I know you guys talked about this on the Buckeye show. What are your thoughts on it going forward? Do you think it's going to be a little bit more wild, wild west with the NIL going forward? Or are we going to see a little bit more of the bag men, so to speak, coming out with the cash? Or just how crazy do you think this thing's going to be going forward? I know we only have this sample size to kind of see with this recruiting cycle, but what do you think?
Well, I don't know that there needs to be a bag man. Everything's above board. I don't know why. The only, and I've stated this a few times, my concern would be the schools getting involved and it not being upfront because they're not supposed to get involved. They're not allowed to get involved. They're not allowed to pay players, that they would sweeten the pot coming from a third party, from an outside group, and that would be difficult to track or trace.
Right.
So I guess when you say a bag man, that would be the way in which I would see it play out.
Well, I mean, my question would be, and when I first heard this, we talked about this when the NIL thing was first voted on. Do you think that this just basically eventually leads to paying the players, just outright paying the players?
I would say, in a sense, I get what you're saying, because that would be seemingly the next step. And that's the way many people thought it was going to go, including, I guess, myself. I didn't necessarily think it would, because I wasn't thinking about, nor were any of us seemingly having this conversation a few years ago about, companies, outlets paying players directly. But so here's my concern. So we've already seen this one play out, and I raised this almost immediately when this started July 1st, was I didn't want to see a situation in which NIL affected recruiting. I knew it would affect recruiting, that a player would estimate and evaluate schools in terms of their ability to draw NIL money. I got that. But in terms of it being direct, that even before a player signed a scholarship to go to a particular university, that they would be contacted as high schoolers and given contracts, and therefore they would make their selection partially based on or fully based on NIL deals like Quinn Ewers did, and who knows who else. So that I don't like that. I would like to have at least maintained the purity of the athlete, the student athlete, making a decision where they would go to school, and then respond to whatever offers they received after that. But clearly, that's already started. So it affects recruiting and affects where these players are going to go. And again, not just their evaluation of the potential, but clearly just directly, if you go here, you get this contract. And then the second one would be just what I just stated, with it being impossible or difficult to trace and track the schools getting involved with the third party to pay the players. So if institution A is paying, has NIL deals with its players that total $2 million, then institution B, its rival, their NIL deals only total $1 million, that they kick in an extra $1 million to match it, or $1.5 million. And we don't know that, because they can send that money to the NIL partners, and then it could be circumvented to the players. So I don't know why they would need to play. This almost takes the institutions off the hook to a certain extent.
Well, I mean, my only opinion on that, Mark, is I think that if you would have asked the people that supported NIL to begin with, I think a vast majority of those people that supported NIL would support paying the players.
Oh, probably.
I think told
yeah.
And I would ask those people that have always supported paying the players. I said, well, show me the system, and I'll tell you whether it's a good system. Everybody can make a broad stroke statement, but until you show me the details. I mean, as the old line goes, the devil's in the details. So until we see the type of system that you're going to draw up for paying the players and making it an equitable system, because I don't think anybody has one for doing that, Mark. You know what I mean? I think that's why people want to go with things like NIL, because they can say, well, at least they should be able to profit off of, jerseys and things like that, or, these companies that can market for them. And then, at least we can get them some funds that way, rather than us having to, design some type of pay structure for paying the quarterback this, the running back that, the offensive lineman that. And because I think the long and short is I think those folks don't have a system on how they would be able to go about doing that.
Oh, and I wouldn't either. I actually think for all the ills of NIL, this is a good portion of it, is that the players, that the market dictates to the players how valuable they are. I think that that's healthier than institutions saying, okay, if you go to Northwestern, you're going to get paid X number of dollars for a football season. And if you go to Illinois, you're going to get paid $1,300 more a month or whatever.
Right.
Or if you go to a Big Ten school, this is what you're going to make. Or it all has to be shared across the board or whatever. I think that this is the marketplace. This is the marketplace determining what a player's worth.
Right. Right. I mean, I do think that in some ways, Mark, I mean, I think some of these smaller schools, will be able to steal a recruit or two here and there. But I think, don't you think still, for the most part, that the major recruits are still going to want to go to the schools? I mean, bottom line, that are going to be competing for national championships and have shown a track record of producing, of sending guys off to the NFL. I mean, that's still the long and short of what a lot of these high school athletes are going to be looking for, I would think.
I would think that players are going to continue to go to schools for the same reason. NFL accessibility and preparation for the NFL, the prestige, the ability to play, the ability to win and all those things. But once they get to said school, if they're not going to play, then they're going to go somewhere else. And now it's going to be less about just playing time and more about playing time equals dollars. Because who's going to get an NIL deal that's sitting on the bench? What company is going to pay for a player that sits on the bench? So if he sits on the bench at Ohio State, but he can go to Kansas State and start, then he's worth more.
Yeah, well, that's why in many ways college football has never been more pro player than it is right now with NIL and the transfer portal going for them. I would say, right?
Yes.
So, hey, Mark, one last thing. As far as bowl games goes, outside of the playoffs, for your money, the most interesting bowl game of this bowl season is?
Oh, I like the SEC and the Big Ten getting together. I've stated that many different ways and through the years. And so give me, if I can only watch one, well, I only know of one opt-out, which is a huge one in this game. But I'm going to go. Give me Penn State and Arkansas. I'll watch that game. Yep,
that's an interesting one. I was going to throw out the man who I wanted to be the Ohio State defensive coordinator and the man who's going to be the Ohio State defensive coordinator, the Notre Dame Oklahoma State game. I don't know if that would be near the top of your list. I would have loved to have seen Pitt and Sparty in the Mark D'Antonio Bowl, but the two-star players are gone. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, David.
Well, as always, a pleasure, Mark. You have yourself a merry one, my friend.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, let's get to caller number 2 here, the voice of college football. And again, a Merry Christmas to everyone who missed our greetings off the top. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
I am doing great. Merry Christmas, sir.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, Mark.
Thank you.
And I'm shocked you didn't mention Georgia State beating up Ball State today. Did you catch any of that game?
I turned it on, and it was on my TV screen for a portion of time, but I cannot tell you what happened or, I know the final score, and I know that Georgia State ran away with it, but it did not really just gather my attention.
Well, Ball State lost 4 of their old linemen and their best wide receiver for the game, which is also their best player. So.
Yeah, wish I would have known that. See, that's another thing, and especially these early bowl games, these group of 5 games, I'm just throwing darts when I make these predictions.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you for not doing a deep dive into North Texas versus Miami of Ohio. It's a crapshoot, honestly. But Mark, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't say the most or under the radar bowl would be the Citrus Bowl between Kentucky and Iowa. No players have opted out, and that'll be a good game.
Well, I went with Kentucky and Arkansas and Penn State. Under the radar? It's an under the radar game. Depends what you consider under the radar, I guess.
People are talking about it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what anybody's talking about except for the playoffs, because that's what everybody asks about here.
Well, what are your thoughts about two of Ohio State's wide receivers sitting out for the Rose Bowl?
Well, I think it presents. I think if you're going to have two players, prominent players, sit out for Ohio State, those would be the players that you would want to sit out. Their wide receiver room is their deepest position and best position. So while those players are exceptional, move on to the next guys.
Yeah. And while I'm going to talk a little bit about the playoffs here, nobody's mentioned, in my opinion, Michigan's weakness on defense, which is the screen pass. If there's anything Stetson Bennett is exceptional as a quarterback, it is throwing the ball 3 yards to the left or 3 yards to the right. So I feel like Michigan might get exposed on that front. Do you have any thoughts about that, Mark?
Well, sure they could. I think they're going – they most could get exposed by George Pickens one-on-one and Brock Bowers one-on-one. And in terms of their inability to cover screen passes, I have heard that out of a few people, I believe. I can't say that I've noticed that firsthand, so that's not my analysis. It's not like I've reviewed the Michigan defensive tape and determined that they can't cover screen passes. I don't think Ohio State, I can think of one screen pass at Ohio State, and it wasn't a design screen per se, but anyway, they flipped it out to the back and scored a touchdown from about 3 yards out to keep them in the game. But yeah, don't know. An effective screen game is huge for anybody.
Right. Well, when Iowa played Michigan, I'm shocked they didn't do that in any way, shape, or form, but that's a whole different issue. That was a few weeks ago. Mark, what does Cincinnati have to do to keep it close against Alabama?
Cincinnati needs to load up on the run, stop the run, and hope that their two future NFL corners can lock down those receivers pretty well. Then they're going to make things difficult on Bryce Young because he's not going to be able to get to his biggest weapons that way. So they're going to put a lot of pressure, I would think, meaning Cincinnati. The Cincinnati coaching staff is going to put a lot of pressure on Gardner and Bryant to play man-to-man coverage and let their rest of their defense attack the run and attack Bryce Young. And it's the key to any game is getting after the quarterback. And even though it can become frustrating when you chase around a really good quarterback who's mobile and can escape and make plays on the move, whether it's with his arm or just break it down and take off with the ball, you just have to continue to stay with it and be relentless, because quarterbacks will eventually make mistakes and succumb to pressure, because that's just the nature of the business. There's no quarterback in the world who does not throw the ball better with a clean pocket than he does running around, running for his life.
I mean, even Tom Brady got affected by pressure when he had to go against the Saints. So,
oh, sure.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because Cincinnati just, in my opinion, doesn't have the athletes that Alabama does. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yeah.
I think
it's part of my job to let people know what I think in regards to a matchup and a projection for a game. And even though my predictions are elsewhere, I'll just flat out say it right now. I'm not predicting Cincinnati to beat Alabama, and most likely I am going to predict Alabama is going to blow out Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think it'll be somewhere around 42-13, 42-10. I don't think it'll be close after the half.
I'm going to give Cincinnati some more scoring than that. So when I say blowout, yeah, I mean 3 scores plus.
Yeah. Okay. And, well, do you think it's possible, because Cincinnati knows that they're an underdog, that they could go for an onside kick to try to surprise Alabama?
Could
do
they?
You think it's probability? What do you think the probability is?
That Cincinnati's
Because they got to steal a possession, I feel like.
My probability that Cincinnati tries an onside kick is probably, I don't know, it's more than 50% because they're going to be behind. And so there are 2 different forms. There is the surprise onside kick, and there is the we're down by 3 touchdowns with 4 minutes left in the game. We just scored, so we're going to kick an onside kick, and everybody in the stadium knows it.
I think, Mark, they could go for one early on. I think if it's 7-0 and it just looks like we need to steal a possession, or even if it's 14-7, I think they could go for one early on in the game, because that would be a huge momentum shift. Sean Payton did that in one of the against the Colts in the Super Bowl, and that was the play that gave them the win. So it's, I mean, you're an underdog, you're a group of 5 team, you might as well go for it. You got nothing to lose.
Yeah, it gave them the possession that took the lead to start the second half. Yeah, it's a risky call. It's also a play that Alabama did against Clemson when they were trading scores. And if I'm not mistaken, Alabama had just, I think that they had just taken the lead. I might be wrong on this. Anyway, it was in the fourth quarter, early fourth quarter, and they were pretty much going back and forth. And that was at the point. It was between the onside kick and Kenyon Drake taking a kickoff the distance that broke the game open and gave Alabama a 12-point lead.
And I'm hearing a lot of people just in this chat, not just in this chat room and on your YouTube channel, but just across the general society, that thinks Michigan can either win or it's going to be close. So with that being said, why is the spread 9-point favorite for Georgia?
Because Georgia's in the SEC and they're decidedly more talent if you believe in recruiting rankings.
Okay, that's fair enough.
And they've been dominant up until the SEC championship game.
Yeah. Mark, if I wanted to know your picks for these massive bowl games coming up, where would I go?
Go to Patreon. Go to Patreon, search MarkRogersTV.
Okay. And the final thing I'd like to say, Mark, is your USC channel is only 43 subscribers away from 1,000.
Thanks for bringing that up. USC channel, everyone. We talk to Matt Zemek from Trojans Wire every Tuesday with a lowdown on USC football. And as the real MVP is telling us, we are only 57 subs away from 1,000. 1,000 is key to the YouTube analytics. And so please help us out by subscribing to the USC channel. Nice work to real MVP.
No problem, man. I got to get those plugs in for you.
Yes, you do. Well, have a good night.
Yeah,
hope you had a nice Christmas.
Christmas gift to you.
Well, I appreciate it. It is a good one. I'll take it. Have yourself a good night. All right. This is funny here. So, F. Scott Fitzbeagle, we talked UCF in Florida. If you would like to talk some more, certainly leave your comment or question or call me in about what you would like to talk about there. But we were on directly after the game, and this is interesting right here. So it's just me, Tim79. I thought we were on good terms. It's just me, Tim79 has been watching us for quite a while, and I don't know what kind of comment this is. It's yeah, one of those generic jokes that yeah. I would love to know the age of this individual. Once I see a comment like that, I think are we like talking like some old dude that's got some kind of stale jokes that he inserts whatever name that he is upset with somebody, or is this some like juvenile like 14-year-old? I don't know. All right, here we go. But my ask here, if you want to throw me a Christmas present, it's just me, Tim 79, would be give me a call. Give me a call. Please give me a call and explain your comment. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Chris.
How you doing?
Oh, I don't want to waste your time, Mark. Good. How was your Christmas?
My Christmas was tremendous. Thank you. How about yourself?
Went okay. I'm by myself, but other than that, it went pretty well.
Very good.
I live alone, so.
well, thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
The question I have, I guess, Mark, is, and I don't want to waste it. We've already kind of talked about it. So if you decide you'd rather move on to something else, that's fine. I don't expect you to give me time when it's already been talked about. But, the one thing that I'm pretty good at, I mean, I'm not going to, you're probably better, I mean, if you want to know the truth, but I'm pretty good at evaluating teams in terms of the resume.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I'm pretty good at it is I kind of know more or less what's required, I guess. I don't know what to tell you. And plus, I went to school for a little bit to study, not athletics, because that wasn't really what I tried to do, actually, was I tried to, because I wanted a fair way to evaluate, as best as I could do it, obviously. I mean, nobody's going to confuse me with somebody that's really good at evaluating anybody. But anyway, you talked a little bit about the football power index and kind of what I'm using. It's not the actual football power index, but it's kind of a spin, I guess you could say. It's based off of a betting website called Team Rankings, but it's a predictive rating. It's roughly the same thing. I mean, they're close enough that it might as well just be the football power index. But I'll be honest with you. The rating. In fact, I was keeping a track of how well it was doing, and I kind of quit looking. But last time I checked, it was actually less than half was predicted correctly on the bowl games. But I'm at 6 and 7 is where I'm at right now. I didn't take into consideration the last two bowl games. I don't know. I might be 7 and 7. I'm not really sure, but that kind of gives you an idea of how well my protocol is. Not that great, I guess. It's only 50%, but anyway, I have Cincinnati at 6 right now, and it's not really me. I mean, it's the rating I use is at 6th place, and I have Alabama, I think, at number 2. I think I have Michigan 3, and Ohio State 4, Notre Dame 5, and I know that kind of goes against maybe what you would say about Notre Dame, but that's where it is, though. I mean, in any way, kind of what I'm trying to tell you. I won't waste a whole lot of time on it. Is I don't really see a whole lot to be gained, at least after this year. I mean, I know things will change, and maybe after this year there'll be like more of a push for getting more teams included or whatever. But I think 4 is actually a pretty good number to leave if we need a playoff. And I don't even really want 4, but I think 4 is sufficient. I don't really quite understand why people want more teams if what we get from 4 is the right, if it gives us the right answer or the right result. If you can pick a game or a season where it didn't work, maybe I'll change what I think about it. But, I think we're getting if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing. I don't understand exactly, what's to be gained by including. Maybe you can tell me or give an idea about what might be gained from, like maybe including 8 teams or 12 teams. I guess it's 12. Can you give us a little bit more insight about what that might do to make it better? Besides entertainment? Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it entertaining to watch more games? I mean, that's kind of part of the question I have. Is it entertaining to watch more games? Well, if we reduce the college football season to 6 games, do you think people would like that? Well, I can't speak for anybody but myself, so no. I mean, I wouldn't like it, but that's just speaking for myself. Yeah, so this isn't my main point, but it's almost like bowl games to a certain extent that there's an argument, are there too many bowl games? Yes. Do we have teams that are playing in bowl games that many people would consider unworthy of having achieved a certain level of season to
be rewarded with a bowl game. And I understand that argument. I entirely understand that argument. On the other hand, if you don't like the bowl games, don't watch the bowl games. And we could all have our different measuring stick as to what should warrant a bowl game. Okay, this is a whole different deal because it's for a national championship. So
Okay.
we have 130 teams playing FBS football. And
Yes.
we have less so than any other sport in creation, less opportunity for those teams to play one another. They do not get to play one another much. They have the least number of games against each other. It's the smallest schedule in sports. I don't know that there's a sport that we can think of that plays less games than college football, and therefore there's less evaluation. There's less critical evaluation and metrics that tell us who's good and who's not good. Therefore, why don't we at least represent each conference in the national playoff?
Am I wrong? But weren't you kind of on the record? I thought I heard one of your, wasn't this week, but maybe last week, where you said something to the effect that nearly everybody agreed that the top 4 teams, if we had to limit it to 4 and not make an exception, I guess, for the G5, that I thought I heard you say something to the effect that we would have Ohio State was like on everybody's ballot or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And that includes mine. Not that I'm trying to be like anybody else, but so I guess my question might be, okay, for me to get Cincinnati in, if it was just limited to my the way I do it, it would mean having to include as many as 16. It just would. I mean, they did beat Notre Dame, but I have Notre Dame evaluated higher because they play a higher level of competition generally than Cincinnati.
Sure.
So if it was up to me, I mean, unless I was like really trying to manipulate things, which at times I can. I mean, I could probably do that, but unless I manipulated things, I'd have to include 6 teams to get Cincinnati in this year. So I guess my question might be, where do we draw the line then? Is it at 6 then to get Cincinnati in? Is it at, that's where it would have to be to get in my way if they did it with my way, or is it 12 like you were saying? Is that where do we draw the line? I mean, I kind of want to know that because is it going to stop at 12? Because the FCS doesn't stop at 12. They have 24, and I don't know if that's where they're going to end it. Is it 24? I mean, they might. I mean, I haven't heard anything about them wanting to include more teams, but they're probably not going to go back to 20 or whatever it was. So what do you think is a good place to draw the line?
Well, first of all, it took us how many decades to get to 2 teams? It took us like almost 100 years of playing college football just to get 2 teams on the field that were ranked 1 and 2. So that took us until 1998. Then it took us another 15 years to get to 4 teams. So people that are stressed out about suddenly there being too many teams in the playoff that it's going to get to 16 and 32 and all these crazy numbers that people throw out. What has shown us in the past that is going to happen first and foremost? It's not like the playoffs are being expanded every 4 years. So we have been very slow to change to begin with. So I don't expect there just to be some explosion of playoff teams. I would expect that the next version is either going to be 8 or 12. Now, for me in particular, my number one criteria is to represent all the conferences. And when I say all the conferences, the Power 5 for sure. And so I wouldn't mind. Well, I have issues with 12 because I don't like bye weeks. They don't work. I don't think buys work for a number of reasons, and I can explain that. So I'm okay with 16, but I understand that we need to start looking at how much the players are on the field and how many games there are. So I'm also okay with 8. I'm okay with 8 with every conference being represented. And the reason why you shut people up that would then say, let's get it to 12, let's get it to 16, because I understand the point that you're making, and I hear it all the time that people say, oh, we're going to make it 8, and then the 9th place team and the 10th ranked team are going to complain that they should be in. Then we're going to take it to 12, and number 13, number 14 are going to complain. Well, yeah, you can always, there are 68 teams in the basketball tournament, and apparently there are teams that complain about not being put in, sure, but that shouldn't keep you from expanding a playoff. Also, my quick answer to those schools that would then complain about being left out would be, we have now built a playoff system where every conference is represented. So you had the opportunity to win your conference and make the playoff. That opportunity doesn't exist now. It's not guaranteed. There is nothing that a team can do right now, Chris, to guarantee that they will make the playoff. Zero.
Right. I understand that.
So that's where
I'm more
stand.
or less under. Well, again, I'm not trying to like throw sand in your face or anything, Mark, because that's, I mean, everybody has a right to their opinion, and
Sure.
I don't know that an opinion is ever wrong. I don't know that anybody's. I think even you've talked about that a little bit. You got, what was that, Dave E. or whoever? You weren't mad at him for having an opinion. I don't think it was just how he expressed it to you, right?
Well, he told me it was a
and
fact.
You kind of expressed it to you. Well, no, but I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know that there's ever a wrong opinion about anything. It's just, my question might be, and maybe use this year as an example. I don't know. I mean, I'm happy with the Rose Bowl being a game that's limited to, teams that maybe otherwise might be included but aren't. I think that makes the national championship a little bit more important than, well, let's just go ahead and throw the Rose Bowl in there too. I mean, that way they're going to have more incentive, I guess, and they won't have the opt-outs or whoever. I think there's a couple opt-outs on each side or whatever, but I still think that's kind of a personal decision. And if a player doesn't, especially, I don't really understand it, Mark, because of course I never played, but the short is like a career in a college, especially at the college level. I would think that they'd be like, boy, I want to make sure I play in this game because this might be my last game. And I would think it'd be just the opposite. I wouldn't think it'd be like, well, I don't want to get hurt. So I would think it'd be like, I want to make sure I get one more game to show what I can do. And I mean, maybe there's a different philosophy now from when I played, but it just doesn't register with me. But regardless, I kind of think the expansion part of it, even if it's what's going to happen, and I don't, if it does, I guess that's okay. But
the guys,
I think sometimes less is more.
Yeah, so the guys that are opting out are not the guys whose football careers are ending. Those are not the guys that are opting out. The guy that knows, I don't have a shot at the NFL and this is my last game as a senior, those are the guys that are playing. The guys that are opting out are the guys that have definite NFL futures. Those are the guys that are opting out.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, again, I don't know what goes, because I was never, obviously, I never played college football. I didn't even hardly play high school. I played like one game or something, and didn't play very well because I just wasn't any good. But again, like I said, what I'm good at, and you're probably inclined to think I'm not, which is fine. What I'm good at is evaluation. And, if it were up to me, I'll let everybody kind of know where I stand on it. This is what it would be like for me if I had to say, and if people would let me choose. I think I would just call it, I'd put Alabama and Georgia in a game and say, that's it. Whoever wins, that's it. And everybody else can play for second place or whatever. I don't think we need more games at the end of the year. I don't think that does anybody any good. That's just my opinion. But
wait a minute. It doesn't do anybody any good. So if we're trying to determine a champion, and so you're just arbitrarily saying we should have thrown Alabama and Georgia in the national championship game this year?
Yes, sir.
So what's
well, it's not arbitrarily.
It's based on,
those were
it's based on your evaluation. I get it. But what are you telling the Michigan football team? What did they not do that they could have done? They won a conference championship. They only lost one game.
They get to play Cincinnati for second place.
They get to play Cincinnati for second place.
Yes. It's like a consolation bracket. They're the consolation champion if they win.
Do you think anyone on this planet that competes in competitive athletics at that level cares about playing in a consolation game?
Well, I mean, like I said, when I was growing up, those were fairly common. There'd be like a conference tournament champion, and then there'd be like a consolation bracket.
That's why they were common. That's why they were common then, and they no longer exist because nobody cared. No, if we played a doubleheader, let's say we played on New Year's Eve. Let's say game one was Cincinnati, Michigan for the consolation second place. So that if you're going to win For second place, yeah. If you win, you're going to finish in second place, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. Second place in what? Second place.
Title ranking.
No, you're going to be in second place in the title rankings. Okay. But you can't do anything to get to first place. You can only get to second place and beat your brains out against this other team that's going to finish in what? Fourth place if they lose?
If they lose.
Okay, so you're either in second place or fourth place. You could beat that team 59-0, and you still don't get a chance to win the championship because some arbitrary person decided that these two other teams are going to get to play in this other game. And one of them didn't even win a conference championship. They lost their last game against the team that were matching them up against to play again. They just lost to them by 17 points, but they're going to get to play them again. How does that make any sense in any universe?
Well, they rank 1 and 2 in my the way I evaluated.
In your rankings, they rank 1 and 2. So we need to stop all of college football world, and because of your rankings placing Alabama 1 and Georgia 2, they should go play in a national championship game, and Michigan and other teams should be relegated to the Consolation Bowl. If you want to see, okay, if I was Jim Harbaugh, forget the players opting out, which they would. There would be an immediate rash of opt-outs. First, they'd be like, who in the hell is telling us that we can't play for a national championship and we're playing in some stupid consolation game? So number one, you want to see players opt out, they would be running for the exits. Number two, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, or I'm Luke Fickell, I am stating my team's not playing in this idiotic game. We're not playing. If I was,
it'd be the same game as they're playing, except
no, it's not.
It'd be like the Orange Bowl, or
it's not the same game.
The Orange Bowl. It'd be like
they now get a chance to win this game and play then for the national championship. You're depriving them of that opportunity.
I don't know that I'm depriving them of it.
Yes, you are. You just said your rankings. Your rankings and your system.
Well, I'm not denying that it would eliminate both teams without them taking I'm saying that's what would happen. But it's not really something I'm doing. It's more or less a result of the way the system itself works.
What system? Your system.
But again, well, it's not really my system, but I mean, the protocol, I guess, that I would use if I was in charge, you can call it mine if you want. It's not really mine.
Well,
I've already told you that nothing I do is really mine.
Well, okay.
Well, I'm just telling you. It's like
So
you think it's wrong?
You
don't
believe?
Think it's...
Well, absolutely. I think it's wrong. You are telling a team that just won a conference championship with a 12-1 record that they're going to play for a consolation prize, while another team that lost its conference championship is going to play a rematch against the team that just beat their brains out by 17 points, and nobody else gets a chance. So we got two teams from the SEC playing for the national championship without any other games being played that matter, because your system, or whatever system you got this from, determines that those are the two best teams in the country.
Number 1 and number 2. Yes. Yes, that's all. You said it right. I mean, you didn't get it wrong. You're right.
Okay. And you think that's reasonable?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's what Michigan and Cincinnati be playing. It's you could say it's for second place, but it's also it'd be like in a place like where isn't Michigan playing in the Orange Bowl?
Yes.
It'd be like Cincinnati for an Orange Bowl. You know, they'd be playing for a trophy. It just wouldn't be the national championship. That's all. Yeah, that's what I would do if I had the say over it. That's exactly what I would do. I mean, I'm just telling you, that's the way I would do it. If I had to say, I don't have to say, so it doesn't really matter, but that's what I would do. And nobody's listening to me, so it doesn't really matter what I would do, but that's what I would do.
Well, that's why that doesn't make it good or not good. There's all sorts of people with great ideas that nobody's listening to. That doesn't mean that that they don't have great ideas and have something to, and there are all sorts of people that have power and authority that make stupid decisions with stupid ideas. So I'm not evaluating it based on my perception of whether you have some type of platform or not. I'm just basing it on, I just can't in any way. It's difficult for me to even respond to this because it's just so ludicrous.
Well, the other possibility would be then if you don't like it, which I didn't expect that you would. The other possibility then would be, and it would sound the same as what we have, except it wouldn't be exactly the same. Advancing the winner to play the winner, which is, it sounds like a playoff, but it's more like a +1 sort of thing, where the two winners. I mean, yeah, it sounds like it's the same thing, but it pretty much is, in all fairness. But the other option would be to include a title game apart from it, that kind of like what we have now, except I guess the seedings would be a little bit different. And then they'd be playing for the chance to play for a chat title. That would be the other possibility.
Okay, so basically,
it would be the same thing.
Your revised system would be just
Basically,
taking your rankings and expanding it to 4 teams as it currently is, but the rankings are just a little bit different. Michigan's 3 instead of 2.
Well, or just keep what we have now, Yeah, and not expand. I think those. I mean, the reason I say that, Mark, is I don't know. I mean, more teams, yeah, maybe more people would care, but maybe they wouldn't though. I mean, I think I don't know that more means more people care, and that more. The reason the FCS does it that way actually is to save money, because fewer people care. You probably don't believe it, but fewer people
what
are
the FCS does and what major college football does, there's little correlation there, because we're talking about a sport that generates millions and billions of dollars because people want to see the teams play. And so how would a Ohio State fan or a Pitt fan or Oklahoma State fan or Baylor fan not be more interested if they were in a playoff game right now than having to go play in a game that they, depending on the person, give various values to?
Okay.
You don't think more people would be interested in that root for college football if their team was involved in a playoff?
Again, I don't. It's hard for me to put myself in somebody else's. I mean, I can only speak for what I would think.
Is there a team
you don't agree with what I think?
Is there a team that you root for?
Well, yeah, sure. Colorado State, but I don't go there anymore. That's when I was in school. I went to Colorado State. They were 3-9. They weren't very good this year. You're asking me if I'd rather them be in a bowl or a playoff? Again, I'd probably prefer it being in a playoff. I'm not going to say I wouldn't, Mark, but doesn't mean I wouldn't want to go see them play in a bowl, though. Doesn't necessarily mean if they went to the bowl, I wouldn't care. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay. So what I gather from everything we've talked about, both here and in previous conversations and in comments that you leave to the various videos, which I truly appreciate, it sounds like if I'm getting your point, that you believe in basically teams playing a regular season and then some kind of computer proficiency rating determining who the best teams are, and really not doing anything past that.
Well, if you don't mind, if I could, and I know I've already taken up all your time, but in 1984, the interesting thing about that, and you probably don't even want to bring it up again. I don't know that there was a clear-cut champion. I think we could look at that game from so many different angles, and I don't think it'll be one person will say it was Florida, because
that's why I produced a video to say that there was a disputed national championship. There was not a clear-cut champion.
Yeah, but
that's why I produced a video that said disputed national championship.
That you gave to Washington, but that's
I didn't give anything to anyone.
Yes, you did. You even said you did.
Okay, Chris.
You said if you had to give it. You said if you had to give it to somebody.
If I had to give it, and you know why I say that? Because I've produced 7 or 8 of those videos, and I know what the result is. I lay it out there to basically.
I agreed with you on some of what you told. I don't know if you read my comments. I didn't say you were wrong.
We both agree with each other on certain points, but I want you to understand the purpose of those videos. I believe that there are particular years, basically every year, but some years are more egregious than others, in which there's a dispute for the national championship. And I'm just outlining the resumes for each team that's in contention. But I know from producing a couple of those videos that people want me, for better or worse, or for whatever value it has, people want me to say and give my opinion as to whom I think was the best team. But I clearly state that doesn't mean that I think that that team should be awarded some national championship. I'm just stating that based on my evaluation, watching the games and looking at the stats and so forth, that is what I believe would have happened or who was the best team. But I don't think that we should be awarding a national championship based on what I think.
I do. I think we should.
Okay.
I think Washington should have a claim on it. I do. I'm not a disagreeing.
Oh, they should have
you.
a claim.
I think they deserve it.
Yeah, there's a disputed national championship. Yes, in 1984.
You can call it the Mark Rogers Trophy or whatever. It doesn't really matter what you call it to me. But yeah, I agree that you were probably right about that. But not the exclusion of BYU though. Not the exclusion of them.
True, absolutely, and that's the point I was making. I was not trying to take anything away from BYU.
Yeah, but you said that they would lose to either one of those teams by like 14 points.
In my opinion,
your comment, you said they would lose.
In my opinion, some people state these as facts. Like, well, this happens all the time. 2000, you had Miami, Florida State, Oklahoma involved in a scenario, and Washington that you're probably familiar with. And
I know about it, yeah.
I have Miami fans in particular that by the droves tell me Miami would have won the national championship. So they state that as a fact. They know Miami would have won a national championship. They're better than all those teams. Well, I never state it like that. I will never state anything as being as a game, just like my famous little argument now with Dave from the last time we talked. The point I was trying to make is that I would be the last person on earth that would say, if this happened, if you eliminated this player or whatever hypothetical situation, that this definitely would have happened 100%. I'm 100% sure that if so-and-so didn't play for Alabama in this case, that they would not be 11-1 or 12-1 right now. I don't know that. I can give my opinion and say, yeah, I don't think they would because he's really good, but that's not reality. So I don't know.
You know what an equilateral triangle is? An equilateral triangle?
Yes. It's,
you know what an equilateral? Okay.
What, 180
like,
divided
from 90 degrees?
90 degrees, yeah.
It's like 2/3 of a 90-degree triangle, right? 2/3. It's like it's not quite 90 degrees. It's 2/3. Did you know BYU was 2/3 of the way to 90 degrees in 1984? That's why they're one of three. There's three teams that qualify. That's just how it is. It's not like it's really not worth arguing about. You know, that's kind of why it's not really worth, like, we could guess on who might be the champion, but that's why it's really just, it's a three-way tie is what it is. And those happen every so often. It happened in 2008, remember?
Of course.
It's just a three-way tie. You know, you can guess about which of those three would beat the other two, but you don't, unless you can show me how they do it. It's like, it's just an opinion.
So, Chris, you're making the argument for a playoff. Why do we want championships to be ties and say, oh, we got 3 champions this year. Last year we had 7. This year we got 2. Why would we do that? Why would we want to do that?
Well, I don't know. I'm just speaking for myself. Like I told you, I mean, people probably don't like it, but you know, I don't know. How do you play off 3 teams? I mean, maybe you can instruct me on that one. I mean, it's kind of hard to do.
We wouldn't play off 3 teams.
Well,
we would never play off 3 teams.
Then I don't know what you do then. Then it wouldn't work.
You have a 14 playoff or an 18 or whatever you have.
Well, it wouldn't work is the point I'm making. You can't play off 3 teams, so that's kind of why I'm against it. So
we wouldn't play off 3 teams. Why would we play off 3 teams?
I'm just telling you. Well, you not only wouldn't you couldn't. So that's where it stops. I mean, that's why it's 3-way tie. That's why it doesn't really matter.
Why do we want ties for championships? People want to see the best teams in the country compete on the field to determine the champion.
I'm not saying I necessarily want it. That's just how it is. I mean, it's not really, I'm not promoting it. I'm just saying that's the way it is. I mean, I try to look for things that are true, that make sense to me. I don't see a winner among those 3. I can tell you who I might think might be the better team, and it probably won't be the same team you pick, but it doesn't mean that I'm right.
Exactly. I'm not right either necessarily. That's why they should actually go on a field and play.
No, but like I said, Mark, I mean, if you can figure out a way to play off 3 teams, then go ahead and do it. But you have to eliminate one. And then Florida was ineligible, so you can kind of do it.
You don't
That means it's
eliminate
between BYU
one.
and
You play a playoff that has a set amount. You don't see. So I'm guessing that the way you would solve things to a certain extent would be you would have a different number of teams in the playoff every year. You would get to the end of the year and say, we got to have these 4 play in a playoff, or just have these 2 play, and you would determine it differently every year. No?
I wouldn't necessarily be determining. No, well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I would probably do something kind of like what you're saying. I would probably throw in a 4 seam there. I mean, we could probably do it that way and not cause any trouble, but I would just leave it at 3 and say, you know what? We have 3 teams that won it, you know, that each one can celebrate it, you know, and be happy for what they did. I mean, I don't know that there has to be like one team that has all the, kind of like all the marbles or something. I mean, that's maybe the way you play marbles is you play until one guy has all the marbles, but that's not necessarily what I do. I mean, I don't know. I'm just telling you that, you know, that's how it is. I mean, we can look at it like somebody got cheated, and I don't know if that's really fair to the teams that
as you well know, Chris, if this was, let's say 1980, let's say this season was 1980, Michigan would be headed off to the Rose Bowl and they'd be playing Utah, and Alabama would play in the Sugar Bowl as the SEC champion. And I guess they'd play, I don't know, whoever the Sugar Bowl wanted to invite. They might be playing Notre Dame. They might be playing Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Georgia might
Probably
be headed.
Cincinnati.
Pardon me?
I wouldn't think Cincinnati did the Sugar Bowl. I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Well,
that's probably not who I would pick.
They played there in 2009. So anyway, and Georgia might go to the, I don't know, they might be playing in the Cotton Bowl against a Big 12 team, or obviously the conferences don't line up with the bowls like they did that particular year. No. But, the Big 12 might be hosting the Orange Bowl like the Big 8 did back then. And you'd have a Baylor game against Georgia. So you'd have the 3 teams or the 4 teams that people thought had a claim for a national championship, all divided in different games against different teams. And you're okay with that?
I don't make those decisions. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know what it's like, I'm just trying to work with what's there. And
but based on this conversation, we are making the decisions. Or why do we have a conversation?
If you want to deny Brigham Young a championship because they didn't play the best team that they possibly could, I mean,
I'm not denying them of a championship. I'm telling you, as I stated on that video, it's a disputed championship.
It is, but it's also, I think I told you, Iowa covers the slack really pretty well. I mean, to the point where it's kind of hard to say that there's not a clear champion even with all that happening. Iowa, if we allow Iowa to be entered into it, I know they didn't play BYU, but there's like a common opponent there. They both have a common opponent, and it works out to where they co-champion is basically what it is. And I know you don't like that because Iowa.
Of course I don't like it. Any sensible person wouldn't like it because Iowa went 8-4-1 that year. How in the world are they considered for any kind of national championship? They lost to 4 teams.
I already told you.
I know, and it doesn't make any sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense.
It doesn't make sense that a team that goes 8-4 is awarded a national championship. How does that make any sense?
They cover enough to cover 1/3. 8-4-1 is good enough to cover 1/3 of it. BYU covers up 2/3. And together they cover up the whole pie. 2/3 plus 1/3. You can figure that out.
All right, Chris. Call me back. Call me back anytime. Right. And we've lost a ton of people on the line. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And for the various people that were waiting in line, I apologize, that are now no longer waiting. So I do enjoy these. Well, I half enjoy these conversations with Chris, but I also am a bit frustrated by them because we are supporting 8-4 teams to be awarded national championships and such. It makes absolutely no sense. Now, if that 8-4 team somehow made some kind of a playoff that we devised, and those were the rules, and then they won a bunch of playoff games to earn the championship, that's a whole other deal. Let me get to 2 comments real quick before I take our next call, but thank you everyone for calling right back. So John says, so John made some kind of Seinfeld reference that I didn't get, and then says, in all fairness to Mark, he doesn't seem like a Seinfeld kind of guy, so I'm going to take that as a compliment. But so when it comes to Seinfeld, no, I'm no Seinfeld like junkie. So we know that there are like Star Trek junkies and Seinfeld junkies, and you can be a junkie of anything, of course. So when it comes to Seinfeld, I would think that I've watched. I've certainly not watched the series in order to know that I've watched every episode, but I probably have watched every episode, and probably most episodes 2 or 3 times, 4 times, whatever. So I've certainly spent too much time watching Seinfeld. I'll admit to that. But no, I've not been like a Seinfeld guy, like I'm memorizing lines and I'm remembering episodes. CJ Hicks is Ian is asking about, will CJ Hicks have an immediate impact at Ohio State? Considering CJ Hicks, so he signed on National Signing Day. Just to familiarize a number of you on CJ Hicks, he is out of Dayton, Ohio, out of Archbishop. It's the 2nd-rated linebacker in the country, top-rated player in the state of Ohio, top 12 player, just ridiculous skills, ridiculous ability, top 10 player in the nation, regardless of position. So I would think that based on the linebacking play at Ohio State, any Ohio State fan would want him to have an immediate impact. I don't know. I've never seen him play 1 snap of football. And it's hard to, of course, even if you're a scout, let alone me, a football scout, to evaluate his play and to determine right now whether he could play in the Big Ten and make an impact at somewhere like Ohio State, which had better linebacking play as the season continued. But that's the best I can do for you right now. The answer to that is hopefully. All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
This is Benny Sports.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad.
Well, what's going on tonight?
Well, I'd like to talk to you and ask you some questions about Ryan Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you think Ryan Day has cleaned up some of the secondary to defend the ball any better?
Well, I think the secondary played better after the Oregon and Tulsa games. The secondary was not the issue against Michigan.
Right.
That was more front seven.
I just wonder if he's going to work on that, and can he beat Utah?
Well, of course they can beat Utah. They're more talented than Utah. I don't know how much they're going to be invested in that game. I would hope that they will take it seriously and be competitive and show up for their school and for each other to put it all out there. I do think that it's reasonable to think that Utah's just naturally going to be more motivated because they've never been to a Rose Bowl and they just won a conference championship, and it's just a bigger deal to Utah. But, you know, I point to Urban Meyer, and every time his teams were left out of the playoffs, did not quite make a playoff, they still were able to show up at a major bowl game and beat the likes of Notre Dame, USC, and Washington in Rose Bowls and Cotton Bowls and Fiesta Bowls. So this is another test for Ryan Day to a certain extent to show us what he's made of and how good of a coach he is.
Well, that's the way I look at it. I thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks for the call.
And I will talk to you later.
We appreciate it. Call back anytime.
Bye-bye. Yep.
All right. Again, if anyone missed the top of the show, Merry Christmas to everyone. We hope everyone had a good day. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. Merry Christmas to you. It's J-Dub calling from Des Moines. How are you doing?
J-Dub, I'm doing well.
Mark, I was there when Oklahoma State came up about a half a yard short of converting a fourth down in Ames and lost to a 7-5 Iowa State game,
Yep.
Iowa State team. And then, of course, they also lost in the Big 12 championship game. But in my opinion, they're just a better team than Cincinnati. So since my opinion matters, and I'm going just by on my evaluation, I'm just going to evaluate them into the Final Four instead of Cincinnati, because I want to follow Chris's lead and just go with what I think is best instead of having it actually played out on the field.
Yeah, if we all get our own opinion and get to set up our own playoff, these players are going to get worn out because they're going to have to play a lot of games to play out your scenario, my scenario, Chris's scenario, pretty much everybody on the live chat and beyond, all our scenarios that we want.
Well, I don't know if he was trolling or not, but it was like a gigantic black hole in the comment section, and he sucked everybody into it. So, anyway, moving along here, if we possibly can. I want to focus on the Final Four, and I just want your take on this. If there is a Cincinnati upset of Alabama in the first game, do you think that gives either Georgia or Michigan a psychological boost in the second game, or is it an even wash? It doesn't really have an impact at all.
Wow, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Because you would think if you just thinking about it, if you're sitting there in the Orange Bowl and you know that Alabama's lost,
yeah,
and you're a Michigan player or you're a Georgia player, you know in your heart of hearts you don't want to play Alabama. You'd much rather play Cincinnati, and now you're going to get a chance. So now how much extra jacked up are you for your game that's about to start?
You would hope that they wouldn't be. You would hope that they would just think, okay, we're not thinking about the next game. We're just focused on Michigan or Georgia. We've got this really good team to play. That's the best team or the second or the third best team in the country. We got to get through them. Then we'll worry about the next. But I'm speaking like a robot. That's not human nature. Human nature is whatever it is that either, hey, we're amped up for this game and we're amped up to win the whole thing, and whoever we've got to get through, we've got to get through. But if you learn that Cincinnati wins,
I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of a 19 or 20-year-old kid who's going to react emotionally to that kind of news. You know, the coaches are going to go crazy. They're going to go crazy trying to get their teams to, hey, forget that, don't look at the scoreboard, forget it. We got to, remember what we're doing here. But you're talking about 19, 20-year-old kids. You can't tell me that, the buzz would be going through the crowd.
Yeah, and for as much as they like to shut off any type of outside noise from those players, only one player has to find out, then the entire team's going to find out. Because I'm thinking back to 2014, I'm remembering, and that's a different time and place. Even though there was social media, it wasn't like basically every person's on it all the time kind of thing. And I remember Urban Meyer's response when he hit the podium after they beat Alabama, and he was told that Oregon beat Florida State, and he didn't know. He was now this is a 50-some-year-old guy versus, yes, a 19-year-old athlete. So he can more at that time focus on we've got a mission, we've got a game. Doesn't matter what's happening somewhere else. Yeah, I got to think it's going to affect individuals. It's going to affect all of them differently, because everybody's different as a human. But they still have to get through the team that's in front of them, regardless.
Right. I just think you and I are of a generation where we remember the AP poll came out after the bowls, and it doesn't matter what teams we're talking about here. You'd have a team, let's say, playing in the Orange Bowl, who found out
yes
that a team ranked higher than them got got beat in the Rose Bowl, and now
Yes.
all of a sudden they've got a chance. If they win their game, they could be voted number one.
Yes.
I think it was probably a little different then because they weren't playing in a game where if they win, they advance to the next one. Where Georgia Michigan still has to win that game and then go take to somebody else. It's not like, okay, Alabama lost, so automatically if we win tonight, we're the champion, like would have been the case, 30 years ago.
Yeah. But it's that there's a obvious logistical difference, but the psychological similarities are there that, yes, if you're playing in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's night and your main competitors for a championship, like I think 1983, Texas had a shot. They were undefeated. They played in the Cotton Bowl at noon. They lost. Auburn was playing that night. Miami and Nebraska were playing that night. Yes, if you knew the dominoes had fallen earlier and now suddenly, you're amped up to play the number 3 team in the country and you're number 4 or whatever the situation, and you're amped up to play in this big bowl game, but you're thinking, 1 and 2 need to lose, and that's probably not going to happen, especially if they're not playing each other. That's 2 different results versus finding out, okay, suddenly this is like a national championship game.
Yeah, I go back to 77, where you had number 3 Michigan beat number 1, and number 5 Alabama beat number 2, and the title was given to number 3 Notre Dame because 3 beat 1, 5 beat 2, and they gave it to. It wasn't that the case. Wasn't it 3 beating 1, or did 3 beat 2 and 5 beat 1? No, Notre Dame was 3 and Bama was 5.
Yeah, well, Michigan certainly.
And they both won.
Texas was 1, right? Notre Dame beat Texas in the Cotton Bowl.
Yes.
Michigan
Montana, I
Michigan
think.
lost the Rose Bowl. So they knocked out USC knocked them out.
Yes. And then Bama, I think, won the Sugar Bowl because
Alabama.
They beat Penn State for the.
Yeah, if you're talking, are you talking 77? Alabama beat Ohio State.
Yes.
The next year they beat Penn State. If you're talking 78, then it was.
They beat Penn State in 78 and won the Natty in the Sugar Bowl, and then they beat Lou Holtz in Arkansas in 79 to win the Natty in the Sugar Bowl. That was the last time they had gone back to back until Saban did it in 11-12, which was the 78-79 season.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna do War and Peace here. I've been on long enough. Merry Christmas to everybody out there in the chat. Merry Christmas to you,
Appreciate
Mark.
that.
And we'll let you get to the next caller.
All right, J-Dub. Appreciate it. Have a good night. All right. Here we go. The voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's McD Sports Boy. How you doing?
McD, what's going on?
Merry Christmas, first of all. I hope your Christmas was well.
I did. I had a nice one.
That's good to hear. Mark, I'm calling for a few reasons. Number one, I'm here to tell you that the Maryland Terps will win on Wednesday against Virginia Tech at 2:15 in the Pinstripe Bowl.
Okay.
And the reason why is because of the quarterback play. Knox Cadam, am I pronouncing his name right for Virginia Tech? Cadam?
I believe so.
Okay. I'm just going to take Maryland's quarterback Tola Tagovailoa over him. I know he was the backup. I know Burmeister, who I believe is in the transfer portal, even I think, is he injured or did he get healthy? But I think he's in the transfer portal. I know it started out the season as their quarterback, so I know Cadam is the backup. So I'm just going to take Maryland because of the quarterback battle, and I'll be here Wednesday after the game, calling in and telling you to praise Mike Locksley, the birthday boy. He has a Christmas birthday.
So we are supposed to praise Mike Locksley for beating a quarterback who we've never heard of, who's never started a game.
Yep. Okay. Because you said If Mike, you told me at the beginning of the season that if Mike Loxley makes a bowl game and win it, you'll lay off him.
I did. I should have considered the opponent, but I did. You're right.
So I'm just thrilled that man was in a bowl game. But I want to talk about Mario Cristobal at Miami.
Okay.
And how I think I honestly don't think it's going to work there at Miami. And here's why. Mario Cristobal, I think he's a great coach. I think he will have Miami consistently going 9-3 every year, 8-4 every year.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to, and he's going to be probably in some ACC championships games, maybe win one. The expectation at Miami is to win championships. He's not going to win championships. At Oregon, he's going to do the same thing at Miami. He'll lose a boneheaded game at Oregon against Stanford or a Cal. At Miami, he'll lose a boneheaded game against a Duke or Georgia Tech every year. I just don't think I think he's a great recruiter. I just don't think in-game coach is that good. And I think Miami fans are going to get frustrated after a few years, and they're going to be looking for a new head coach after a few years because I just don't think it's going to work out.
Okay.
I think it's going to just fall a little bit flat.
Well, here's a few things to consider. So really, Mario Cristobal's had 2 full seasons at Oregon, 2019 and 21. They only played 6 games in 2020. So I get that they had a disappointment a couple of years ago, the year they went to the Rose Bowl and could have gone to the college football playoff, and they lost at Arizona State late in the season. So that wasn't necessarily a Duke, Georgia Tech kind of loss. Arizona State was decent. And then this year they lost to Stanford. So it's not like he's been doing this for 10 years where he's been blowing games to bad teams. You know, this has basically happened once, maybe twice, maybe. So he doesn't necessarily have a track record of this.
I was just going to say that Arizona State team was unranked. That's how I'm measuring it. I know Arizona State was a decent team, but they were unranked.
Yeah, they were a pretty good team.
I agree. They just weren't ranked.
They weren't any great team, obviously. Yes, they weren't. Yeah, he didn't lose to Clemson or Ohio State. No. Yeah, they weren't that good. But, yeah, they were a decent team. They were a capable team. They were a top 40 team in the country, something like that. My point is that I understand what you're saying, and he's shown this twice, but he's only shown it twice. It's only been twice that he had a team that had an opportunity to make the playoff, and they blew it against not a great team, or in Stanford's case, a horrible team. The other point I'll make, though, is that when you say Miami expects championships, you're right. The Miami fan base expects championships. Is there a program that's been as far removed from competing for national championships as Miami, where there are reasonable expectations that they compete for national championships? You know what I mean?
I could think of one.
Okay.
Yeah, but I could think of one.
Who would that be?
Nebraska.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's been about the same length of time since they've competed for national championships. It was right exactly about the same time. Yes. The last time Miami won a national championship, they beat Nebraska in the Rose Bowl. So, yeah. Okay. I don't know if you talk to Miami fans, which we have on here, of course, all the time, I believe that their expectation for national championships, especially with this Cristobal hiring, but even before him, is much higher than your typical Nebraska fan.
I agree.
I think they want to compete with Iowa and Wisconsin. That's about where they want to be. They're like, get us there first, and we'll be happy for quite a while. Just get us to Bo Pelini 9-4. But
Yeah,
you're right. That's fair. I didn't know where
Mm-hmm.
else you would go with that, because Miami is the fan base that's been the most removed from national championship consideration. That's still a large portion of them see themselves as national championship contenders. I don't see anybody else like that in the country, except, like you say, maybe Nebraska.
Yeah, so I mean, I do think Christian Ball will do better than Manny Diaz did, even though I would have kept Manny Diaz. I understand it's an upgrade, and I do think Manny Diaz got done dirty there in Miami.
Yeah, I agree.
But I just think Christian Ball is going to underachieve just enough for the Miami fans after a few years to go ahead and start calling for his job. Sort of like what they did with Manny Diaz earlier this year. I know the second half of the season for Miami was pretty good, but I just want to get my 2 cents on that.
So before you hang up, McD, the real MVP threw in Tennessee. So Tennessee last won a national championship, of course, in '98, and a couple of years after that, we're still in competition for national championships through basically '01. So I don't know what their fan base is thinking about them being in national championship contention, but that's a reasonable team to throw out. And somebody else threw out get out the John Boy threw out USC. Now USC, of course, was playing in a Rose. Yeah, they've been much more recently good. They were competing for national titles in 08, 09, and played in the Rose Bowl and finished number 3 in the country in 16. So, okay. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's about change. I think USC is going to, in 2022, I know we're still in 2021, but I think USC is going to be finishing top 10 in 2022, personally, with Lincoln Riley getting there. But I'll save all those thoughts as we get in next August. But Mark, that's all I have for you. Thanks for taking my call once again. Merry Christmas. And I'll talk to you after Maryland beats Virginia Tech in the Pinstripe Bowl on Wednesday.
I am looking forward to it, McD. Have a good night. So I think the plan this week is basically to watch bowl games all day, and then I'll be on here at the end of the bowl games. Basically what we're going to do. And most nights that should be about 11 o'clock. I think one game in particular, I think there's a Minnesota-West Virginia game. I believe that's the one. There's a couple late bowl games, like 10 o'clock, 10:15 kickoffs. Let's see what we got this week. I love this week, by the way. This opt-outs be damned. Whatever people want to say about teams and their motivations, and it doesn't matter and all that. I get it. You're right in that we don't know the motivations. So, for example, thus far, if you hate the SEC, you're going to say, well, the SEC just lost 2 bowl games to Army and UCF. And you know what? You're right. You're right. You should be able to capitalize on that point. They're football games. They're supposed to be competitors. Don't make excuses. You went out there, lost. Missouri lost. Florida lost to group of 5 teams. Okay. On the other hand, if somebody wants to say, well, Florida was missing A, B, and C players, and Missouri was missing Larry Beatty, one of the best running backs in the SEC, that's also the truth. And that we can't really go by these bowl results. And I do think that that's a more reasonable comment to make, sensible comment today than it was 10 years ago because of the opt-outs. That unfortunately we can come to less substantive conclusions about these bowl games and what it says about the teams and therefore the conferences. And I, as a guy that evaluates the conferences, hate that, because this should be the best time to evaluate, because we've got the most like-seeded matchups. We got the 1 seed in the Pac-12 taking on the 2 seed in the Big Ten. We've got the 1 seed in the ACC, Pitt, taking on what would be the 3 seed in the Big Ten, and so forth and so on. So these games should be meaningful. they're great matchups on paper, but when you take out possible questioning about motivation and incentive and the opt-outs, then you start to question the results. But as it stands right now, and I will take this call in just a second. So we set up like this week. On Monday, we've got Western Michigan, Nevada at 11 a.m. We've got BC, East Carolina at 2:30. We've got Houston, Auburn at noon. No. Sorry, timeout. Monday, we only have Western Michigan and Nevada at 11 and a 2:30 game with Boston College and East Carolina. So we'll come your way sometime on Monday. We'll figure out a good time, maybe prime time on Monday. And then on Tuesday, they definitely want to steer clear of Monday Night Football is the reason why there's no Monday night game. Tuesday, Houston, Auburn at noon, Air Force, Louisville at 3:15, Mississippi State, Texas Tech at 6:45, and then we've got an 8 o'clock game. Oh, man, we've got a full day on Tuesday. 8 o'clock, UCLA, NC State. I think that's a pretty good matchup. And West Virginia, Minnesota. So I am hyped for the last 3 games on Tuesday. Give me Mississippi State, Texas Tech, but especially give me UCLA, NC State, and West Virginia, Minnesota. So we're not going to be on until almost 2 o'clock in the morning, unless we sit through this West Virginia, Minnesota game together. Maybe we'll do that. Do a little watch party Tuesday night via the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Minnesota, West Virginia. Wednesday, we've got SMU, Virginia at 11, Maryland, Virginia Tech at 2:15, Clemson, Iowa State at 5:45, Oregon, Oklahoma at 9:15. We should be here about 1 o'clock in the morning? Okay. Thursday, North Carolina, South Carolina at 11:30 a.m., Tennessee, Purdue at 3, Michigan State, Pitt, 7, and then Wisconsin, Arizona State at 10:30. Man, I hate to be on here while these really good, like Wisconsin, Arizona State, Minnesota, West Virginia is on late, but what are we going to come on at 2 o'clock in the morning? So subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. That's the best way to deal with that. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Marcus, George in Portland, Oregon, the butthole of the world.
George, I'm sorry that you're languishing in the butthole of the world right now.
Well, it's not my fault they shut down all their restaurants, you know. I only have a choice between Burger King and McDonald's now. It's just not fair.
Well, that sounds
okay.
pretty fancy.
Back to football.
Yes.
Navy Thomas. I haven't heard from him in a while. Where is he?
Navy Thomas showed up on our Nebraska show last week, but I had not heard from him for quite a while, a few months. But he showed up last week.
All right, that's cool.
We might be a little too late.
When you were naming the people you made moderators,
yes,
like 5 or 6 of those people are really hardcore old timers. So who knows? Maybe people are busy doing Christmas shopping or something.
Well, fortunately, we just picked up some moderators today, but since they may not have responded yet, I didn't want to say anything. But there's about 4 people that I gave moderator. I finally figured out the quickest way, the most effective way to give moderator status is that if they hand over their channel URL, which anybody can take anybody's channel URL. That's what YouTube is asking me for, to approve a moderator.
Wow. It's getting deep now. They used to just do it in 1 second and no one asked any questions.
Yeah, well,
I've been a moderator a few times and no one ever asked me for shit. They just made you a moderator, you know?
Well, when I did that, I don't know if that made them a moderator, or now if YouTube is going to send them some kind of invitation to let them know that they've been invited to be a moderator.
Right. Hey, Mark, this
Yeah.
is a hard question, but what's the alternative for YouTube?
Oh boy.
Like, if you didn't have YouTube no more, where could we be?
Oh boy. I've thought about that
That's
myself.
a hard one.
It is a hard one.
Oh my God. No, Mark, I don't know if this is true or not, but maybe you could just do MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football.com. And we could just go there and watch I don't know. There's got to be a way out of this.
Well, yes. So I've got a website, and it would just be how would I would have to hire some type of other type of streaming service to go directly to that site, I guess. You bring up a great point, George, and that's one of the reasons why the first protection is to have multiple YouTube channels, which we of course have. So if one of them gets shut down, I've got other ones. But if they all would get shut down,
it doesn't work in the long run. It doesn't work in the long run. People get tired of it, you know. But yeah, initially it's a good idea.
But yeah, if I
People
ever just
are only gonna follow you, like, yeah.
If I ever just disappear, then I hope people would know voiceofcollegefootball.com. Go to voiceofcollegefootball.com,
Right.
and I'll be waving my hand there saying,
Hey, listen.
save me.
Listen to me. Listen, Mark, I do not want the job. But if all your listeners will write me in for president, I will accept the position. I will fix this shit on the first fucking day. I'll be like, I will nationalize YouTube, and I will tell Russia they're our best friends in China. We'll all get international passports. It'll be great. You'll love it.
And you'll make this true freedom of speech.
No more credit score. You say whatever you want. No one cares. Absolute freedom for everybody. And we're going to make money out of thin air, just like we do now.
Well, George, for you to win an election, a national election, I would have some recommendations of some other channels that you may want to go to where you could gain a lot more votes than you would here.
Never. Hey, Eddie, what the fuck? That's the guy. That's the guy in your chat section, Eddie.
Yeah, I've got Eddie's
his name is
post
Eddie.
up right
What
now
the
here.
fuck? Right.
George, have you tipped a few back tonight?
I tried to save the country. Hey, Mark, at what point do you feel sorry for Georgia? At what point do you feel sorry for Georgia? It's only been 41 years. When do you start feeling sorry? 42 years? You know, what's it take to feel sorry for a football team?
We had Uncle Lou on here the other night.
Right,
he seems to be pretty stable.
Is he?
Pretty happy guy.
He has
all
to
right.
say that. He has to say that. The Georgia fans have him under a microscope. They're watching him. He wants to talk like me and say, we know we're going to fail again, you know, but he can't do it. All right, Mark, I live in Portland, Oregon. It's the most climate temperature in the universe. That's why I live here, right? I don't like it to be too hot or too cold. We're under a 5-day freeze warning with snow where it never gets warm. And they declared a national emergency ahead of time. What is wrong with these people? Do they think we can't live 5 days? You know? God.
Yeah, well, shoot, I live in Connecticut, and when it's about to snow, they get on their weather reports like it's never snowed before, and it's a way of life.
I know. They've been doing this for like 5 years or something. Rain, snow, anything. It's an emergency.
It's because hardly anybody wants to watch local television anymore, local television news. So that's the one way that they can reel them in, by scaring them with weather reports. Anyway, George, we're going to keep moving along here. We appreciate the call.
All right, go Alabama. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Let's get to some of these super chats. Appreciate Eddie chiming in. So Eddie's responding to my talk about Miami's expectations. So he says, Mario, is in his Clemsoning phase. As a Cane fan, I don't expect a natty in 5 years, but I do want to win 10 plus games, win the division, which they should. They should do that next year, I think. Win a conference title here and there, and win New Year's Six bowl games first. Very reasonable there. Also, I appreciate the super chats coming in from Captain Nemo and from Uncle Rico, of course, and those were posted for quite some time. And also, we've got John here. John, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the contribution. Much more appreciated than you can ever imagine. So, Merry Christmas, John. Thank you, Mark. Watching your shows helps me pretend I'm not just a casual college football fan. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, GBR. So, John, hopefully 2022 is better to you and your Nebraska faithful than 2021 and 20 and 19 and 18 and 17 and 16. And yeah, that's about where it came off the rails. John, thank you so much for that. Much appreciated. All right. I don't think we've missed anything. Let's head back to the phone lines. Why don't we take these two calls and then we'll call it a night. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Dustin Miller again.
Hey, Dustin. How are you?
Hey, Merry Christmas, man. How you doing?
Merry Christmas to you. I'm doing well. How was your holiday?
It's like most. I'm retired military. I really don't do Christmas, but
okay.
Anyway, I got two things. Really, nothing major. But what do you think about this? I know COVID and these new variants and stuff coming around, but the committee coming out and saying if, like, say, Cincinnati, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan can't field a team for the playoffs, that they're just going to forfeit the game and that team gets to move on.
Well, I don't know what all the logistics are concerning the stadiums and, just consider a situation in which both teams they're traveling, let's say, from Michigan and Georgia to Miami, and they're ready to play. And then the day before, one of the teams comes down with too many COVID cases and they have to wait 2 weeks to play a football game. Like, I understand that they're in a difficult spot to try to determine what length can we go to ensure a football game is going to be played. They're trying to make sure that the games are played on the same weekend that they're supposed to be played, leading into a national championship game. 10 days later.
I understand that. I'd really hate to see that happen. I hope it doesn't. I pray it doesn't. But I guess with the age we're in now, I think they're going to have to, I don't know. Hopefully we're going to get an 8 or 12 team playoff here in the next 2 years. But just seems like you shouldn't get a pass. There should be a plug-in team like Ohio State, for example.
Well, can you imagine one of their stipulations is, let's say Alabama beats Cincinnati and let's say Georgia beats Michigan, and then we're coming up on the national championship game and Georgia gets COVID and Alabama's just declared the national champion.
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario right there. That would be awful.
Or the other bad scenario is where two teams have to play 2 games where the other team gets a forfeit and they just automatically go into the national championship game. Let's say Georgia gets COVID, Michigan gets the forfeit, and then they're just sitting waiting for the winner of the Cincinnati-Alabama game. And they get a free pass into the national championship game.
That's what I was more kind of concerned about, was getting a free pass, basically. And I know it's kind of hard. Like, you can't pull Ohio State out of the Rose Bowl now because that's what they've been preparing for the last 3 weeks. So it's kind of hard. But I really hope we don't have to suffer through like we did 2020 and see some more COVID variants or something ruin this game for us.
Well, you bring up
So
an
much is
interesting
built
point because we just saw a situation where Texas A&M couldn't or wouldn't play in the Gator Bowl on January 1st. And they went and dug up Rutgers and got them out of bed. Those kids have been sitting around the dorm, slugging beer and potato chips for a month. They're not in football shape, and they're going to get ready to play. Now, the stakes aren't as high, but still, they're only going to get in 5 or 6 practices to play after they haven't played since the last Saturday of November. And they're going to have to play a really good Wake Forest team on New Year's Day. And I guess they're excited about it. But where, to your point, Ohio State's practicing. So physically, they're preparing to play a high-level opponent. Now, if all of a sudden you said, okay, Georgia's out, Ohio State, come play Michigan, they'd be at a huge disadvantage that's a bad example because, of course, they played Michigan and prepared for Michigan. Let's say all of a sudden Cincinnati can't play and Ohio State's got to take their place and play Alabama, and they've been preparing for a month to play Utah, and suddenly they don't have any tape on Alabama, and they've got 3 days to prepare for a game, and they're physically preparing for a game anyway. And then they've got all these guys that opted out that may not opt out, and it would be a bit of a mess. But I would think that Ohio State, despite the disadvantages, would take that and say, hey, we'll give it a shot. Yeah, we'll play.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think anybody wouldn't if you get put in that position. I see, Rutgers, they weren't planning on going to a bowl game, so they just got thrown into the mix. But those kids are ready to play. They want to play. They got a lot of good players on Rutgers. They got a lot of there's some stories behind a lot of them players on that team.
Who is just a neutral college football fan that just wants to see the best teams play? If Cincinnati can't play, would not want Ohio State to fill in their spot and play Alabama? Who would not want to see that game?
Ohio State. Yeah, I want Ohio State in there anyway.
Well,
if Georgia and Alabama are going to play again, possibly, then Michigan and Ohio State should play again, possibly.
Again,
so put Alabama and Ohio State.
It's not about Ohio State.
Georgia,
it's just about whoever the next team. Maybe it's Notre Dame. You threw Ohio State at me. Maybe it would be Notre Dame, and they would have to go play. So it probably wouldn't be Ohio State. It would be Notre Dame. I was just going through you threw me Ohio State, but basically I got to think Notre Dame would be that team.
I'm just, in my eyes, the 4 best teams I see in my eyes.
Well, yeah,
are Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, and Ohio State.
But if they would go by the committee's rankings, and Notre Dame would take somebody's place.
I understand that. All right, and then the last thing I had is just what do you think we can do? Because I feel that college, the bowl season that I loved growing up with in the 80s and 90s, the early 2000s, even with the stupid BCS, everybody showed up to play. Like there weren't kids opting out to play. What can we do to make these bowl games matter again for these kids to not opt out and show us? Like today, it was Georgia State and were they playing Ball State?
Yeah.
All these people opted out, and it was just basically second team playing.
They opted out of that game. Ball State and Georgia State.
There's
seriously?
Yeah, there was some.
Really?
Yeah.
Who in the world was
Georgia
opting
State
out of that
away.
game? I had it on, but I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention. I got to look at this.
Yeah, there was probably 5 or 6, maybe even more than that total that opted out of that game. I think one of the running backs opted out. I think, was it Georgia State's running back? One of them opted out. And then there were an offensive lineman, I think, like that, defensive lineman.
Are they
A couple others. Like Georgia
NFL
State's not a bad
prospects?
team. Yeah. Georgia State's got some good players.
Well, yeah, they do. They almost beat Auburn. They probably should have beaten Auburn.
Yeah, they should have. Yeah, I'm just wondering, because we're going to see this more and more every year. We saw it, a couple of years ago with, just with my team, Michigan, with like Jabril Peppers and all them guys opting out because I think Jim Harbaugh, told him, hey, your NFL career is more important than playing in a bowl game that really doesn't matter. So what can we do to incentivize these guys to play so we get more?
This is all I
them
can
college
say.
Football games, the bowl games back.
Yeah. Well, these are the two things that I'll say. Is number one, I don't know what's going to stop these players from not opting out sooner, because what's the okay? I'm just throwing out a team. Arkansas. They went 8-4. Their best wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the country, Treylon Burks, is not going to play. Okay. They're playing Penn State. Arkansas played Missouri to end the season. Why was that game any more important than playing Penn State? If anything, more people are going to be interested in and watch Arkansas play Penn State than they did play Missouri. That game wasn't meaningful. It was not. Both teams were out of the championship race. It's not a meaningful game. So I would expect players to, if your team's 6-3, you got 3 games left in the season and you can't win a conference championship, why wouldn't you opt out then? So that's number one. I don't know why these players wouldn't start opting out sooner. Number two, this is the only thing I can come up with to incentivize these bowl games, is these players are receiving NIL deals as it is. Why not make the sponsor of the bowl games an NIL partner with the teams and pay the players for the bowl games?
That's exactly what I wanted to hear you say, because that's exactly how I believe. I mean,
the games
these
are
bowl
already
games
sponsored.
are already making tons of money off these kids. They're sponsoring the games. I mean, they do already get a gift package worth $1,000 or something like that. But I mean, we got to give these guys more. I mean, the colleges, the universities are making so much money off these players. There's got to be some way that we can get them more reason to play, especially in these bowl games that we all cherish. I know I'm almost 40, so I'm in the back of the old days where the Rose Bowl, the Big Daddy of all, the bowl games were everything. And I love bowl season. I love December, watching football basically from the middle of December to the end, and just loving it. I mean, waking up every day watching whoever was playing. I watched every single game. And now, just like today, you got Georgia State and Ball State, and players are opting out. And it's just not really an exciting game. And like you just said, the Penn State or Arkansas game, I mean, any other day, say that's like a pregame or preseason game or whatever you want to call it, non-conference game, that everybody's going to get up and watch that.
Yeah, I look forward to these games too. I want to see Iowa and Kentucky play, and Penn State and Arkansas and Oklahoma State and Notre Dame, and on down the line.
Yeah, it's always been my favorite time of year is December, watching these playoff or these bowl games. But just now, if you're not in the playoffs, or I mean, you even see guys in the New Year's Six opting out now, which sucks.
Sure.
Because I love watching them. I don't care who's playing. I just love college football. I don't like the NFL. College football is it for me. So we got to get these guys in. I mean, I would love to see all of them play. And I understand, yes, getting hurt ruin your career, and it's still you need to do something. And I also do, in the next 2 years, I believe we're going to be at least an 8-game playoff because of the ball games losing so much money to kids opting out.
For sure. Well, thanks so much for the call. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking the call. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Let's go Blue.
Merry Christmas. Appreciate
I'll
it.
even be rooting for the Buckeyes.
All right. Let's get to, so I love being misquoted. Shanktopotamus. Mark, nobody's opted out 3 games early. Just stop. Is that what I said? I was making the point that somebody could do that. I didn't say that anybody had done that. Somebody could do that. There actually have been a couple players that opted out before the last game of the regular season. I'd have to do a little digging to find out who those were. No, I'm just making the statement that if you look at it reasonably, if you look at the importance or perceived performance of these, or importance of these games, why is the Michigan State Penn State game at the end of the regular season any more important than Michigan State playing in the Peach Bowl against Pitt or Penn State playing Arkansas in the Outback Bowl? The answer is they're not, because both teams were out of the conference race. More people will be watching Michigan State and Pitt in the Peach Bowl and the Penn State Bowl game against Arkansas than watch them play each other the last game of the season. So I didn't say that players were opting out after 3 games or with 3 games left. I said they could. We got Wedgie Ocean, who is telling us that over the past 6+ years of watching college football, the Big Ten has easily been the better conference from top to bottom compared to the SEC. What's with the SEC bias? Okay. So you're telling me that since roughly 2015 that the Big Ten has easily been the better conference from top to bottom to the SEC. Well, Wedgie, you need to bring some support for that. So first of all, I disagree with you. I would say that the SEC has been a better conference for the past 5 or 6 years than the Big Ten. And I could state a number of reasons why. So in stating your point, what do we have to go on? What are you stating here? Nothing. You're saying that the Big Ten has easily been the better conference from top to bottom compared to the SEC. Based on what? Not based on results. Not based on results. Based on your eye test, I guess, but not based on the results on the field. Because I guarantee you that in the past 6+ years that you're stating right there, that the SEC has a better non-conference record, a better bowl record, better postseason record, better playoff record, better head-to-head record. Okay, so I don't know what you're going on. You're going on your emotions, it appears. But I appreciate the contribution. So anybody else that wants to go on their emotions and contribute, that would be great. I saw a couple questions in there. Yes, Dependent Fanatic, you can go the academic route, but we're not talking about academics. We're talking about football. And I would love to be able to state that the Big Ten is better than the SEC and be able to back that up, but we cannot do that. We cannot do that. I have a personal call coming in, but I will stay on here and clean things up. Man, 3 more calls. Let's take these 3 calls, and we're going to take them quickly, and because we're only going to take 1 more call. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Merry Christmas, Mark. This is Jeff calling.
Hey, Jeff. Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Hi. Merry Christmas, Mark. Thank you for all you do there. Mark, I caught your show the night when Coach Meyer was fired by the Jags, and you came on and you were asking for a coach that had some success in the college game that actually made it in the NFL. And a name I wanted to throw out to you, although his body of work in college wasn't nearly like Jimmy Johnson, but how about Coach Bill Walsh?
Yes, that's I saw, maybe it was you, maybe it was somebody else that stated Bill Walsh, and that was a good response. Absolutely.
Yeah, because he had a quarterback like Steve Dill's, not Jim Plunkett at Stanford. Also, Mark, I caught you with the guys from Ohio State and heard you were the Cleveland Browns fan. So forgive me, Mark. I know you're the voice of college football, but I wanted to ask you an NFL question real fast. Which loss hurt you the worst, Mark? Was it the Red Right 88 game or the drive?
Oh, so to distinguish myself and clarify, I am technically a Browns fan. I did not grow up a Browns fan. I did not care about the Browns. I was a huge NFL fan, but I was not a Browns fan. So since they came back in 1999, I kind of declared myself a Browns fan, just out of default, thinking, okay, well, I'm an Indians fan. I'm a Buckeyes fan. For as much as I was ever an NBA fan, I'm a Cavs fan, or was a Cavs fan. So I kind of took the Browns by default, but I did not care about those games whatsoever in regards to having a rooting interest. In 1980, I was a Cowboys fan. So if anything, I was rooting.
Well,
I wasn't necessarily rooting against the Browns. I just didn't care.
Well, may I ask you this then, Mark? Because I respect you're really good, Mark. But which loss hurt the worst then, Mark? 1981 with the Eagles, 1982 with the 49ers, or 83 with Washington?
So they were all brutal. They were all brutal. They were among my most disappointing, discouraging, painful moments as a sports fan. Those are three of the worst right there. I could recite practically every play from each one of those three games, but because of the down to the wire finish, it would have to be the. I've always stated that the 82 NFC Championship game at San Francisco was the worst loss that I've had as a sports fan.
You know, Mark, everybody remembers the catch with Dwight, but they forget the Cowboys nearly came back until Eric Wright made a tackle on, was it Drew Pearson or Tony Hill, one of those guys, but it was kind of a horse collar tackle. Yeah, it would have been illegal today. But Mark, again, I won't keep you, and I hope you have a happy New Year, and thanks for all you do, Mark. I really appreciate you.
Well,
sometimes I wish you would do
Yes.
I know you're the college football voice and encyclopedia, but I wish you'd do a throwback NFL show. I'm just putting out a request.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because a friend of mine and I started a history of the NFL. I forget what we threw it, what we called it. I don't think you can legally call anything NFL, whatever. So I think it was History of Pro Football. We started a channel where we were going to produce an NFL history segment. So if you want to hear about 5 or 6 conversations that we started before we didn't carry it through, you can find that. I'll put a link on here. I'll find it and put a link. But we had some really good conversations about the history of the league, in various subjects. Again, we posted about 5 or 6 videos. I would love to do that.
Well, again,
absolutely.
Mark, I just want to thank you, and I hope everybody out there hits the thumbs up, and big thumbs up from Jeff in Toledo. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. You have a good night. I appreciate it.
Good night. Yep, good night.
All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line? Hello? I think we missed somebody there. Our last call of the night. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Marcus George, I was worried for a minute there.
Wait a minute, George. 1 call per night. Say goodnight.
No, it's my first call. It's my first call.
Say goodnight.
It's my first call.
Your
I
first
never
call
got through.
since when? What
I
are you
called
talking about? What did you black out?
You can go back and watch the tape. I never called tonight. I kept trying, but I never got through.
George, we had a nice lengthy conversation tonight. Say goodnight.
All right, good night.
Oh, my word. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Let me pick these up. I appreciate Tim. We've got Tim on the line. Merry Christmas. God bless everyone in 2022. Even the Irish. Tim must be a Michigan fan. Michigan fan, I guess. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that so much. Thank you for that. And I don't want to miss anything. Let me see. Anything else? Oh, we've got, there we got. Yeah, Wedgie Ocean. We already caught that. All right, everyone. Yes. Don't know about tomorrow for sure. So again, be watching out for your notifications. But starting with all the bowl games coming up on Monday throughout the rest of the week, we will be here talking bowl games. And I've got a couple videos coming out in the next few days where I'm going to look at the 8-team, the 12-team, the 16-team playoff and how that would have come out for this particular season. And then also I'm looking at the recruiting rankings and how that has determined, how that has predicted the winners of the national semifinal games since 2014. Right here, the voice of college football. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. You're so much appreciated, and we will see you next time.